Okay, greetings everybody. Jim, your web development instructor here. I think you probably all know that by now. What I'm doing is I'm redoing a PHP tutorial video that I did several months ago in early 2018. I just answered questions from several students this morning, and there was a combination of things that were in the prior version of this video tutorial on PHP topics that they didn't pay close attention to, or they wouldn't have been having the issues that they were mentioning. And there were a few points that were in their questions that I decided to go back and include in a revised version of this video tutorial. So that's what we've got on our screen now. I have 3 slides, and something new in this version, new and improved version of the tutorial, is that I have this first slide that I put together with some interesting history about the PHP language and system. So it was first introduced way back in the early days of the internet in 1995 as a free and open source language system, and the original meaning of PHP was personal homepage tools. So that, kind of takes you way back to those early days when a lot of websites were just a personal home page. In the year 2000, a company which has a website at zend.com released a significantly improved version of PHP. They're still in business, and they have created and maintained something called the Zend framework, which is a very extensive library of functions and utilities for writing code in creating websites using PHP. But at that time in 2000, they suggested that PHP stand for PHP Hypertext Processor. And then in quotes or in parentheses, you see an example of recursion. So I guess we call that programmer's humor. But PHP has been a popular server-side scripting language since the early days of the internet. And major systems written in PHP include WordPress, the vBulletin forum, bulletin board forum software, the Magento and WooCommerce shopping carts, and the original Wikipedia and Facebook platforms were written using PHP. Facebook, both of them still have a lot of their server-side code in PHP. Facebook has created their own sort of flavor of PHP that they call Hack. PHP is still going strong in 2018, but it's losing popularity a year at a time to other alternatives, Python, Java, and others. PHP.net is the main documentation website for the PHP language, and for any given PHP function or command, that's kind of the definitive resource to check. They also have examples for each function and command, control structure, etc. And then you'll find a lot of complementary resources at stackoverflow.com, on YouTube, and elsewhere. Okay, here's the second slide in our 3-slide presentation. And again, I created a prior version of this demo video, or video tutorial rather, about PHP, but and it had slides that appear similar to what you're seeing here, detailed questions and answers, but I've rewritten it all so it's providing some greater depth than the prior presentation. All of you can, of course, pause this video and read these points in detail. I've composed them specifically to help you with our first project website and the task you have there to create a PHP script that will be invoked by an HTML form on the main page of your one-page resume project, and send email. Okay, and also then send to the screen, produce an acknowledgement message. Your email has been sent. Click here to return to my resume, a website, or whatever it says. But in the demo video that I created for the project, it shows you how that responds and what that acknowledgement screen needs to look like. And that is produced by your PHP script, that acknowledgement message. And of course, prior to producing the acknowledgement message, it needs to send the mail, which is just done via the PHP mail function, which accepts 4 parameters. So on our class website, under the instructions for this item, the PHP contact form script, there's enough detail along with additional resources on the class website, along with this video, for you to get everything done and not have any trouble, which is not to say that getting language scripts debugged can't be pesky, particularly when you don't have prior experience in a language. But there's a lot of support here in this video and on the class website. And what I have found working with many different language systems over the past 30 years of my IT career is that, you know, it is a lot like learning to ride a bicycle or drive a car. Once you learn the basics, getting in another car or on another bicycle can be, you know, a bit of an adjustment, but you've got the basics. As you go from any server-side language to any other, and PHP also is object-oriented, it has that object-oriented functionality, which is a pretty major issue in its own right. As you go from one popular server-side language to another, you're going to start looking for, okay, here's what I was using in PHP, here's what I was using in Java or Python or whatever. Where is it in this Ruby for Rails system that I got to learn now? You know, and you'll find it. So a lot of it is, you know how to use control structures in a language. You know, for website and web page construction, the kind of things that can be done in a powerful, popular server-side language, you're going to find them in that other language, and you're going to pick it up a lot faster. Okay, so you can read through this on your own. Anything in here that you may find interesting. I think everything on here is pretty self-explanatory, so let's go on to the next slide, which is the final slide in this video. Okay, so once again, you can pause this on screen and read through it for yourself. One of the reasons I decided to create this updated version of this video is that a student emailed me over the weekend, and I just read the message, and he's saying, you know, how do I test my PHP files? I bring it up in the browser like you normally do with an HTML page that you're debugging, and I just get a blank page. And so you'll see at the top of the left-hand column here, you know, that's because once you have a server-side language involved, your local computer is not set up as a web server. So the whole process begins with a web server saying, all right, this is a PHP page. I need to hand that puppy off to the PHP processor. It'll tell me when it's done. PHP processor picks it up because it has a PHP suffix. It looks for any sections with PHP code. It interprets that. It substitutes in values, things to return, and then it takes that whole thing and it leaves any HTML sections unchanged as is, and then it hands the whole thing back to the web server, and it says, I don't know what else you may need to do with this file, but I'm done with what I needed to do, including that the server-side language will often find code in, you know, in its section that says, okay, crack open this database and start doing table lookups, see what you find, you know, bring me back this customer data, and you get what I'm saying. Okay, and then I'll just mention one final thing right above where I am on the screen. What about writing if statements in PHP? And I give an example. So something I had on the prior slide, slide 2 in this presentation, was that PHP is always looking for a semicolon to end a command or a function. But an exception to that will be a control structure like this if statement that you see right above where I am on the screen, where you have curly braces, you have parentheses, you have curly braces, and that's it. Now, I should say there's one error here that I'm going to fix as soon as I finish this video, which is that mail function, which has parentheses for itself because it's a function call, needs a semicolon right after that closing parentheses that's not there. And the reason is that that is a command or a function. It's a function call. It needs a semicolon to terminate it, even though it's inside another set of parentheses, which is for the if statement. So the general structure of the if statement is, and like the loops, the while loops will have their own structures too, but you don't need that for our first project, for your first project website work. The if statement structure is that if, and then inside parentheses, here's what I want to test. And if it returns true, then curly braces, within the first set of curly braces, do all that stuff. And that could be as little as a single line of code, a command or a function call ending in a semicolon, or it could be any combination of gnarly control structures, further if statements, whatever, each of which needs to conform to, the PHP rules. And then in this case, we've got an else statement. The else statement also has its curly braces, and then anything inside there is going to be a combination of commands, function calls, control statements. And once again, commands and function calls end with a semicolon, control structures maybe not. But one thing that does need to be corrected here is that mail function call, which is accepting 4 parameters, and by having the $ in front of each parameter, that tells you it's a PHP variable. It could instead be a literal inside quote marks for any one of those 4 parameters, and then that should end with a semicolon that's not there. But then beyond that, you got curly brace. If you got an else statement, you got another curly brace, and you're done. So you see inside that first curly brace area acknowledgement message stuff here. So that would be, I'm giving you a real world example of creating your PHP mail script. That's where you would say, hey, thanks for sending the message, because mail returning true means, hey, I was able to send the mail. If it returns false, that's the else statement. You got an error message of some kind. Then you would be diagnosing that, which you don't need to worry about for your first project website. You don't need to send error messages to the screen. Okay, just get your script to send mail successfully by checking the mail sending function. Okay, so I'll end this video here, and the other resources on our class website for PHP plus this video should be enough to get you through.